Title: The Shattered Stars of Brizzerion. Prologue. The arrival of the Celestials. The world of Brizzerion had once been a vibrant place, where the green valleys teemed with life and magic. Humans, elves, and dwarves coexisted in an uneasy balance, their histories filled with wars and alliances that stretched back thousands of years. Yet for all their differences, they had always been the true rulers of Brizzerion. That is, until the sky cracked open. It started as a shimmering tear in the heavens, a cosmic wound that split the night sky like fragile glass. From that fracture came the Celestials, beings of pure stardust and magic, their forms ever shifting like liquid nebulae. They descended in great floating fortresses, casting long shadows over Brizzerion. Their arrival changed everything. The Celestials conquered with otherworldly power, manipulating the fabric of reality itself. They bent time and space, creating chimeric beasts that roamed the lands, creatures of nightmare, like fire-breathing bunny dragons and owlbears with predatory gleams in their eyes. The cities of Brizzerion fell one by one. Entire kingdoms were reduced to smoldering ruins as the Celestials imposed their will. The people of Brizzerion had no choice but to submit to their new cosmic overlords. One of the most infamous symbols of Celestial rule was Mare Castle, a blackened fortress high in the Mare Mountains. A place where horrors were whispered to occur in the dead of night. Chapter 1, Brizzerion's Fall. Brizzerion, or Briz, as the patrons of Blackstone Tavern knew him, had once been full of life and ambition. Growing up in the bustling town of Blackstone, he spent his early years in the tavern's kitchen, where he learned the culinary arts from his parents. The smell of roasting meats and simmering stews was always a comfort to him, and in those days, he loved nothing more than making people smile with his creations. But cooking had only ever been the beginning for Briz. He had bigger dreams. The stories he heard from travelers, the dwarves who spoke of forgotten treasures beneath the earth, elves who whispered of the ethereal lands beyond the Silver Sea, and humans who had fought against monstrous beasts, lit a fire in him. Briz wanted to become one of those adventurers, to see the world beyond Blackstone, to ride dragons and face terrors head-on. For years, he trained with a sword in secret, fighting alongside the town's guard and honing his skills. He was quick, determined, and his laughter was infectious. Everyone knew him as the cook who could wield a blade just as well as he could a ladle. But his opportunity for adventure came in a way he hadn't expected. Mare Castle loomed large over Blackstone, its shadow stretching for miles. When the Celestials took control of the castle, they transformed it into a fortress of dark magic. Briz was hired as a cook for the castle's lords, alien beings who paid no heed to human lives. But the things he saw there shattered his spirit. In the depths of Mare Castle, the Celestials conducted bizarre experiments on the people they had enslaved, twisting them into monstrous forms for their own amusement. Briz witnessed elves turned into mindless servants, humans spliced with beasts, and dwarves experimented upon until their bones turned to glass. It wasn't long before Briz himself became a victim. One night, during an uprising attempt by the castle's slaves, Briz had been caught in the crossfire of a Celestial lord's magic. His legs were destroyed in the blast, shattered by the arcane force, leaving him broken. The Celestials showed no mercy. They sent him back to Blackstone, alive but crippled, a reminder to the town of what awaited those who defied them. When he returned, he was not the same Briz. His legs never healed properly. Though he could walk, he did so with pain and a limp, and running or fighting was out of the question. Gone were his dreams of adventure. Gone was his laughter. Briz retreated into the shadows of Blackstone Tavern, where he resumed his work as a cook. But now, the joy had gone from his food, and his once bright eyes had dulled. He spent his days stirring pots of stew, his thoughts haunted by memories of Mare Castle, by the things he had seen. His heart, once so full of fire, had turned cold, weighed down by the knowledge that his dreams would never come true. Yet in the deepest part of his soul, the dreams never fully died. He still longed for adventure. To ride a dragon. To find love. But he had lost his belief that any of it was possible. Not since the accident. Chapter 2, A New Hope. The cold air of autumn swept through Blackstone as Briz stood behind the counter, preparing a pot of stew. The tavern had once been lively, filled with music and the chatter of patrons, but now it was quieter. People no longer laughed as easily, their lives ruled by the shadow of the Celestials. The doors creaked open, and a group of adventurers strode into the tavern. They were an unusual sight, dressed in worn leathers and dusty cloaks, their weapons gleaming with the wear of many battles. Leading them was an elf woman with golden hair, her piercing green eyes taking in the tavern with quiet authority. Beside her stood a stocky dwarf, his face hidden beneath a wild beard, and a human man with eyes that seemed to shimmer with starlight. Briz watched them from behind the counter, his heart stirring with a familiar feeling, envy, longing, regret. These were the kind of people he had once dreamed of traveling with. They were adventurers, heroes who fought against the cosmic horrors that ruled the world. And here he was, a broken man who could barely walk, let alone fight. The elf approached the counter, her gaze settling on Briz with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "Are you Brizzerion?" she asked softly. "Depends who's asking," Briz muttered, turning back to his stew. "I am Delina of the Star Elves," she replied, her voice calm but commanding. "This is Boric of the Stonehammer clan," she nodded to the dwarf, "and Idrin, a starborn human. We're here because we've heard of you." Briz laughed bitterly, shaking his head. "Heard of me? I'm just a cook. Whatever you've heard is old news." The dwarf, Boric, stepped forward, his voice a low rumble. "I've heard of the cook who survived Mare Castle. The one who faced the Celestials and lived to tell the tale. That's no small thing." "Living isn't the same as surviving," Briz said darkly, stirring the pot harder than he needed to. "I'm not the man you're looking for." Delina's eyes softened as she watched him. "You used to dream, didn't you? Of adventure. Of something more." "Dreams don't mean much when you're too broken to chase them," Briz snapped, his voice harsher than he intended. There was a silence between them, the only sound the crackling of the tavern's fire. Briz could feel the weight of their gazes on him, and for a moment, he wanted to lash out, to tell them to leave him alone. But deep down, something was stirring, an old, familiar yearning. "We're fighting back," Delina said quietly, her voice filled with determination. "There's a rebellion growing. People are tired of the Celestials' rule. We're gathering forces, and we need someone like you. Someone who knows them." Briz shook his head, pain flaring in his legs as he turned away from them. "I'm not a fighter anymore. I lost that chance a long time ago." Before anyone could respond, a low rumble echoed through the tavern. The ground shook, and a cold wind swept in through the doors. Outside, the sky darkened unnaturally, the stars flickering as though being swallowed by some unseen force. Briz's heart raced as he recognized the signs. The Celestials were coming. Chapter 3, The Beast from Beyond. A monstrous cry echoed through the mountains, shaking the walls of the tavern. Briz limped to the window, his breath catching in his throat as he saw the source of the sound. Descending from the sky was one of the Celestials' flying fortresses, a massive, black citadel, hovering above the earth like a storm cloud. Its surface crackled with violet lightning, and from its depths emerged a creature unlike any Briz had ever seen. The beast was a twisted chimera, a fusion of creatures born from the Celestials' dark magic. Its body was part dragon, part lion, with the wings of a griffin and the tail of a scorpion. Its eyes glowed like distant stars, and its very presence distorted the air around it, warping reality itself. Delina and her companions immediately sprang into action, drawing their weapons as they prepared to face the creature. Briz, however, felt frozen. His legs burned with pain, and the memories of Mare Castle surged through his mind. He had seen creatures like this before, in the dark halls of the fortress. He knew what they could do. The chimera let out a deafening roar as it charged toward the tavern, its claws tearing through the earth. Delina slashed at